All right, good morning, everybody. Happy June, right? Today we're going to be starting human anatomy. So we have 2 weeks of human anatomy. Week 1 is this week, this Monday. Week 2 is going to be next week. And we are going to split up the entire human body into 2 videos, all right? So that means they're going to be a little bit more lengthy because depending on what source you're looking at, the body has either 9, 10, or 11 body systems, depending on what you're looking at, all right? And so this week, I'll be focusing on kind of the foundational 4 systems, which are the skeletal, muscular, cardiovascular, and nervous system. And we're going to talk about those, hopefully about 5 minutes a piece. So 4 times 5 is about 20 minutes, all right? The posting for this video is going to be, the posting for this week, I should say, is going to be a little bit large because I'm going to be giving you access to a PowerPoint to each of the systems that I cover. I'm going to be including just a general body systems video, not made by me, on YouTube as well, plus my video, plus the successive assignments. So there's a lot of content being posted to Google Classroom this week, so just pay attention to what you're viewing and clicking on, all right? And so without further ado, let me present my screen, and we are going to start with a brief synopsis, all right? So let's hide this. We'll fully project away. All right, so the body systems. All right, if the laptop will cooperate. All right, and so in general, each body system approaches the human body in different ways, right? And so first, let's define human anatomy, all right? And then more likely anatomy and physiology, all right? Anatomy is defined as the science that looks at the structure of the body, of organs, all right? That's looking at things under microscopes, looking at things in general, and noting the structure of things, all right? Physiology, all right, root word, you can kind of hear that physical, all right? This is how things function in the body. And so human anatomy, anatomy and physiology go hand in hand because one perspective looks at how something works, and the other perspective looks at what is it made of, all right? And so, again, we're going to go through each system, hopefully about 5 minutes a piece. We're going to start off with the skeletal system, all right? And so without a foundation, a house cannot stand tall for years and years, all right? And the same thing goes with us. Without a skeletal system, we would be a big puddle of organic tissue. Without our legs, we could not stand, all right? Without our arms, we could not grasp out and reach things, all right? The major parts, right? We have bones, joints, and bone marrow, right? And in general, the responsibilities of the skeletal system is to protect other organs and to produce our blood cells, all right? Red and white, right? So with the protection piece, right? We all have a rib cage, right? The rib cage is very important for protecting all of the organs encased in that cage, like your lungs, your heart, anything else mumble jumbled around your stomach and such, right? Some organs in your tummy, right? Those aren't protected in the rib cage, right? The most important ones, arguably, all right, the heart and lungs, are in the rib cage for a reason, right? Those need to be protected because without our heart, we could not have blood pumping through our system, and without our lungs, we could not get oxygen transfer to the rest of our body, right? And so I'm going to jump to a different PowerPoint very quickly, right? And so the human body has 206 bones in the adult body, right? And so when you are born, due to just a natural cause, all right, the bone structure of a newborn's head is not solid like an adult's. It's actually quite soft. And so in this bottom left, right, you'll see some of these sections and such, all right? Those aren't rigid because they need to be able to move around in the beginnings of life, right? But as you age, it hardens and fuses, all right? And so a baby, all right, an infant, human infant will have quote unquote more bones in their body than an adult human because they don't have these fused bones in their skull yet. All right, they're called fontanelles. All right, that's just a fun fact. All right, it's the framework. It supports our body. It protects our organs. All right. We do have a couple different types of bones, right? A compact bone is the hard, dense outer layer of the bone, right? So, you know, touch your shins, all right? That's a hard bone, all right? It should be right on that almost exterior of the skin, all right? No, interior of the skin, but it should be almost the most outward thing in your leg, all right? Is that shin, right? Spongy bone, all right? It has holes in it, all right? It looks like a sponge, right? This is just essentially, if you think about it, all right, for you X-Men fans, Wolverine, all right, he was injected with something that made him very, very heavy, all right? And we, as humans, would also be very, very heavy if all we had in our body was compact bone. It's hard, it's dense, it's heavy, all right? And so to cut out a little bit of the weight that our bones contribute to our muscle mass, we have to pretty much add some spongy bone into it, right? And then you have marrow as well. Bone marrow is where your red and white blood cells are made, right? And so once you have compact bone and spongy bone, which exists in the same bone, like your largest bone in your body is your femur, connects your hip to your knee. And that has a mixture of compact bone to allow for stability and structure, but it also has an amount of spongy bone, just to add a little bit less weight to it, or to take some weight away. And bone marrow exists in the inner tube of all of your bones in your body, and that is what produces your blood cells. All right. You can break up the skeleton system into two separate systems, axial and appendicular. Appendages, all right, so that's like your legs and arms, and the axial is pretty much from your head to the trunk, you know, kind of staying in the midline. All right, and again, it allows you to stand up, so that's the shape and support. We're going to get into movement a little bit, all right, once we move towards the muscular system. Protection's the huge thing, right? Storage a little bit. Storage is things like calcium and all that. All right, and so foundations for the skeletal system is that it allows for structure, all right? And it's a good holdfast for the muscular system, right? The muscular system is pretty cool, right? So I'm just gonna check this, all right? And I'm just gonna switch my view real quick, all right? We just have some construction workers coming, so I'm just gonna flip. Morning, Matt. So major muscular system parts, all right? Skeletal system's pretty integrated with the muscular system. And so your muscles attach to your bones, and those are pretty much where you have ligaments and joints and such start to come into play, that vocab, all right? And so smooth muscle, all right, is a lot of the muscle of your organs and such. Smooth, think of it as a texture, all right? Skeletal muscle is muscles that attach to your skeleton, all right? That's a lot associated with your voluntary movement, all right? So biceps, triceps, extending and retracting your arm, that's all using your skeletal muscles and voluntary movement. You control this, all right? You don't control your heart beating, right? And that is your cardiac muscle, all right? In general, the responsibilities of the muscular system is to move the body and everything in it, all right? And so when you are walking over to your laptop to view this this presentation, you were using your skeletal paired with your muscular system to complete that type of movement, all right? And so I'm going to hop PowerPoints again and just bring you very quickly into some sorry. All right, so how does the skeletal muscles move? All right, they attach to the bones of the skeleton, right, as we just explained, right? They respond to nerve impulses activated in the brain, right? And so a minute ago, I was saying voluntary movement, right? And so we all know that the brain is pretty integrated into our life, all right? And so my brain is telling my arm that I want to move it, all right? And without my brain's communication, my arm would not move, all right? So that's the nerve impulse side of it, all right? Depending on the strength of the impulse, one of the following contractions occurs, all right? It's either a twitch muscle, all right? And that's just a very, very light, almost like a twitch, right? Right, and then we have the other type, which is tetanic, all right? A smooth, sustained muscle contraction resulting from high frequency stimulation, right? And so in a lot of ways, there's muscle movement in your body that you don't control, like your digestive system. You don't control your digestive system at all. That's called peristaltic movements, all right? That happens whether you want them to or not, right? And we all know of an occurrence where our digestive system does not have good timing, all right? All right, so isometric system, all right, its tension continues to increase, but the muscle neither shortens nor lengthens, all right? And so this is getting more towards action potential and such, right? And then the muscle changes in length and moves the load, all right, concentric, eccentric, all right? And so we're getting a little bit more towards direction of muscle movement, and that's a little bit more towards like physical science, and we don't need to pay attention to that too much, all right? There are a lot of crossing systems, all right? And so when we talk about the neuromuscular junction, what do you think that entails, all right? It's a lot of your nervous system playing into where it connects with your muscular system, right? And so in a couple systems, we're going to talk about the nervous system more in depth and talk about just your typical neurons and dendrites and axons. But you have specialized motor neurons, right, that are going to move some of the muscles that you're trying to move, right? And so there, again, I'm going to share this PowerPoint with you, all right? And this muscular PowerPoint specifically goes into a lot of fill in the blank notes, and I'm not going to go through those with you right now, but feel free to view that a little bit more in depth on your own time. But in general, the muscular system focuses on body movement, all right? And there's voluntary and involuntary movement, right? Voluntary, you can choose to do, all right? I can't just think about trying to make my heart pump faster or slower. I can't tell my my digestive system to stop working. I can't tell my liver to stop pumping out certain antioxidants and such. All right. So so far we have talked about how the skeletal system adds a little bit of shape and structure to our human body, and now we have added how muscles are pretty much attached to your skeletal system to allow for it to move. All right. The big thing for the muscular system is movement, right? So hopping PowerPoints, we are now at the cardiovascular system. And so this is also called the circulatory system because it circulates a lot of nutrients around the body, right? So major parts, blood, all right? We all know what blood is, all right? And hopefully you haven't seen it anytime soon. Hopefully no one's seen any large amounts of blood, but we all know it's there, all right? We also have the heart, all right? The heart is the pump of our body that keeps things moving, right? And blood vessels, right? Blood vessels is an overbearing term that applies to the junctions to where your veins and arteries meet in the body, right? And the responsibility is, again, transport nutrients and waste through the body, right? And so in a really quick way, all right, we went through diffusion a long time ago. And in a lot of ways, the solvent of the solutions that we were trying to dissolve was water, right? And the human body is mostly water, right? And so in a lot of ways, we're still using that concept when we're talking about how the blood carries things like, your salts, your calciums, your vitamins, your minerals, all of that stuff that we need. Your Fred Flintstone gummy multivitamins, all right? After we consume that and break it down, all those vitamins break up and get into our blood system, and then with our heart pumping our blood, all of those nutrients and such just disperse into the system through arteries and veins, and then through diffusion and through areas of need, concentration gradients and such, that whatever we intake is eventually going to be evenly distributed through the body. All right, and so a couple key things while I'm on this slide. All right, you'll notice how there are red and blue. All right, this is only trying to represent that there are veins and arteries. And what's the difference between the two? It's the direction of where they are coming into or coming out of the heart. Artery starts with an A, and arteries pump blood away from the heart. I'll repeat that. Arteries pump blood away from the heart, right? And so let's think about that. Is that blood oxygenated if it's going away from the heart? The answer is yes, all right? We'll tie that in with the respiratory system next week, all right? Veins, all right? Typically, they are represented as blue, all right? And they are bringing blood back to the heart. And what type of blood is that? It is deoxygenated, all right? And so in a lot of human anatomy diagrams, they are going to represent veins and arteries as separate colors. But I want to make it very clear, blood is always red. A misconception in human anatomy is that, like, oh, you have blue blood, because a lot of people will look down at their wrists and see that these veins and such are blue, all right? It is a trick, right? It's just how it looks when you're looking through your skin. Blood is always red. Right? The diagrams have misled people through time, and now as a teacher who just got their teaching license, we have a lot of misconceptions that have been allowed in past teachings, and we have to clear those up, right? So again, cardiovascular system pumps blood through the body, right? And I just want to get to, there we are. All right, and a little bit more on the heart, right? So we have a lot of ways to look at the heart, right? I'm not going to go through all of them, but the biggest ones are going to be this EKGs or ECGs, right? MRIs are a big one too, ultrasounds as well, right? And so it's, in a lot of ways, the heart is just a pump, right? It does have 4 chambers, and those chambers are to essentially add oxygen and add a little bit of the direction, right? We have chambers and ventricles, all right? It's the size of your fist, all right? So if you make a fist in your hand, right, this is the size of your heart, right? And just an added bit, typically your brain is the size of 2 of your fists put together. So put that in your head. All right, on your sternum on your left side, again, inside your rib cage. And it is a one-way street, all right? There's only one way in, there's only one way out, all right? And when it says specialized conductive system, I'm sorry, I forgot to make this bigger. A lot of the contractions of your muscles and your heart are controlled by electricity, right? It's just a lot of positive and negative charges just arcing towards each other, and that is how you get voluntary movement, or involuntary movement in this case, right? So you have 4 chambers, right? And this is the last slide I'm going to spend on the heart, because I feel like I've been talking about it for more than 5 minutes. All right, so the atriums, or the atria, plural, right? It's the top, right? They receive blood. And so, and some architectural vocab, the atrium is the front door to a lot of bigger buildings and such, right? So just a connection there. All right, and the ventricles are on the bottom, all right? They pump the blood out, all right? And so the blood will come in through that superior vena cava, all right, in this top kind of purpley, right? And so it'll come in through the right atrium, all right? It has to go through the tricuspids, and I know I'm not explaining everything, but these are essentially just, it allows things to only flow one way. Notice the shape of everything, notice the directions, follow the black lines, right? And so it comes into the right ventricle, right? And then it goes up through this pulmonary artery. Pulmonary, that prefix pull is going to tell you it's in the lungs, all right? And so, again, this is deoxygenated blood coming into the right atrium, goes down into the right ventricle, and then comes up the pulmonary artery, all right? Once it's in the pulmonary artery, look how it goes 2 ways. And guess what you have? 2 lungs, all right? And so it goes out to the lungs. Your lungs do gas exchange, and that blood becomes oxygenated. And then it comes back through the pulmonary vein, all right? Again, let's apply this. Pulmonary artery took the blood away from the heart to the lungs. Pulmonary artery, all right? The blood came back to the heart from the lungs through the pulmonary vein, all right? Use that vocab a little bit. All right, so we're coming back through the pulmonary vein. We are oxygenated blood at this point. We're going to come in through that left atrium, all right? We got to go through one more tricuspid valve, and then we are going to go through the left ventricle, and then we have this aortic valve, all right? And look at this yellow structure, all right? Your aorta is huge, all right? Think of this big stem in the very center of your body. Right, all of that oxygenated blood from your heart goes to that stem, and off of that stem, think of it like a power strip with like 6 sockets. You have 6 things running off of one strip, right? So what's plugged into that? Your liver's plugged into that somewhere. Your digestive system's in that. All of everything that needs blood is split from that aorta, and then just carried out through more ventricles and such. Arteries, not ventricles. All right. And so, again, I don't want to go too much into the heart. The heart is very, very cool, very, very complicated. All right. But I don't want to overdo it. All right. So, last but not least, the nervous system. All right. The nervous system in its major parts are your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. And the responsibility: control your senses and direct other systems. And so the first time I mentioned the nervous system today, I was speaking about how if I want to move my arm like I am, my brain is telling my muscles to do that, right? Without the nervous system, you would not have voluntary movement. I can't get up and walk away without my nervous system, right? People are like, oh, I'm just using my skeletal system and mixed with my muscular system. All right, you're actually using all 3. You're using nervous, muscular, and skeletal system just to stand up. All right. So the nervous system is probably one of the most complicated and complex, but once you pretty much work literally from the top down, from the brain to the foot, you hit a lot of these nerves, all right? And so look at this figure, and from the brain, right? This is our control center. This is our big important things, all right? This is why we wear helmets. This is because we need to protect this, right? And what's the connection to that brain? Your spinal cord, all right? This creates your central nervous system, all right? An easy way to remember that: where's your spine in your body? It's in the middle. It's in the center, all right? And your spine and your brain together make your central nervous system, all right? And so, just like the aorta split up all the blood coming out of the heart that needs to go everywhere, the spinal cord splits up all of the directions, nerve impulses, anything coming in and out of the brain. They ride the spinal cord, right? There's a lot of reasons why we have to protect that spinal cord, because if something breaks, if something doesn't talk to each other or connect, or there's a problem, we have difficulties, all right? So some people who get into car accidents and have spinal compromises or something like that, they become paralyzed. They lose feeling in certain places, and that's because of a blockage in the spinal cord, all right? I'm going to jump into that other PowerPoint very quickly, all right? And so just to start off a little bit, all right? So I've been talking about voluntary and involuntary movement, and that relates to this too. Voluntary response is me being like, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go get up and make myself a glass of water, pour a glass of water, all right? Involuntary movement is a reflex. And so we do this in the classroom with the little triangle-shaped hammers, and you would hit the very bottom of your patella, of your kneecap, and there's a reflex right here. I don't know if you can really see it as I'm trying to independently dangle my foot, but that's showing us how we can't control that that movement, that reflex response. And so this is also kind of when you have an oopsie moment and there's pain involved. And my favorite example is the hot stove. All right, you don't know your mom just made a bunch of brownies or something like that, and the stove's real hot, and you put your hand on it, and your hand immediately feels the sensation of pain. Right, that is going to be an involuntary reflex response to get your hand off that hot surface as fast as you can. All right, so voluntary movement has conscious thought. Involuntary movement, you don't think, you do. All right, hopefully we can make a connection with that. All right, we don't need to make an example of each. All right, so I'll list these. All right, so there's a couple different types of neurons. All right, and what are their functions? All right, and so typically you're going to see this motor neuron, all right, as like the typical, or the interneuron as like the typical neuron on like MCAS tests or such, but they typically look the same, a little bit different, but they're always going to go from the dendrites to the axon. There's always going to be a nucleus cell body, and we can talk more about that if we had more time. But again, I don't want to go too far into these. All right, and so in a very simple way, because I know I need to wrap up this video. Your brain plus your spinal cord is sending all these impulses out, and the further you get away from your body, right, the more nerves it takes to communicate, right? So as I'm touching the end of my finger right now, right, I am having that sensation of touch travel from my finger to my hand, to my wrist, to my forearm, to my bicep, to my shoulder, to probably the middle vertebrae of my thoracic cavity, and then it goes up to my brain. And then my brain sends a signal back to my finger, notifying it that it's having a sensation of being touched, right? And notice how fast it is, right? You don't need to be like, there's no delay, there's no lag, right? This is immediate response. You know why it's so fast? It's all electricity, right? And in a very simple way, if you can remember changing currents of positive and negative, right? You can understand how muscles move. You can understand how neurons speak to each other. And you take a basic concept and you apply it to the human body, and you understand so much about how things communicate and work. All right. And so let's look at the time. All right. So I know this is going to be a longer video, but human anatomy is such a large topic. Right. So again, I'm going to be posting a YouTube video, this human body by Nat Geo and such. All right. We're going to just discuss all of these. All right. Eventually. All right. So I'm going to be posting this human anatomy Nat Geo video in addition to my video that I'm creating right now. And then I'm going to share out all of the PowerPoints that I used for this video. And that's a total of 5 PowerPoints and 2 videos for this posting for the lecture. All right. The assignment's going to be after. All right. All right. So thank you so much for giving me your attention. And I hope you learned something new today about the human body. All right. Just real quick, we are reaching the end of the year. Right. The grade book closes on the 19th. And this Monday and next Monday are going to be the final postings of content. All right. More on that later. All right. For now, thank you for watching. Please keep up with the work and live forth and prosper.